Hey, it's Webs here with day 2 of the Sunken City mini set, Throne of Tides, and there's been 12 cards revealed today, 3 cards for each individual class. The classes in question being Druid, Shaman, Warrior, and Warlock, and some of which will be spicy tech against combo decks or even just against control decks. So let's begin. The first card revealed today is Moonbeam. Moonbeam is a 1-cost arcane spell for Druid that deals 1 damage to an enemy twice. So sadly, Malygos isn't currently in standard rotation, which means a card like this doesn't have a lot of easy spell power to actually go off of. But in theory, you could use this in combination with Celestial Alignment in order to make all your spell power minions cost 1, and then use the Oracle of Elune to actually duplicate all the spell power minions. That might be a really fun deck to actually try out with a card like this, and honestly I really miss that style of deck. I know it's not the most fun to play against, but I always loved miracle style decks that used Malygos as their big win condition, because Malygos is just one of my favorite all-time cards overall. I honestly think this is a decent overall card for a style of deck like that. However, if you're not playing a deck where you can actually scale this damage up, I don't think this will see much play. Wrath is just a better early game removal tool, but it really just depends if you want the arcane tag as a school of magic, so you can actually use Multicaster and Druid. But there are other better arcane spells, generally speaking, for most Druid decks. The next card revealed is Spirit of the Tides, which is a 2-cost Druid minion with 2 attack, 2 HP, and if you have any unspent mana at the end of your turn, gain +1/+2. So this condition isn't really that hard to actually meet. This means this card isn't actually really a 2-cost card, it's more of a turn 3 card, or later than that. If you can get it off once, it's actually a pretty good body for a 2-cost minion. But again, it's not something that you're going to want to play right away when you have it in your hand, as there are probably better 2-cost minions that you could actually use instead of this. But this does have a lot more potential for later in the game. So I think this card will probably see some play in some type of aggro Druid, as it does give you a minion that in theory could get really large if you draw it early enough. The next card revealed is the final Druid card, which is Herald of Nature, which is a 3-cost Druid minion with 3 attack, 3 HP with the Naga tag. With the battle cry, if you've cast a nature spell while holding this, give your other minions +1/+2. So that Battlecry support that we actually saw yesterday in the form of Snapdragon actually has a really good support in this card. It's another type of way to actually just buff up all of your minions to really big levels, and honestly isn't really that hard of a condition to fulfill in Druid. I think a deck buffing Druid aggro build is probably going to come out of this, maybe similar to the Pirate Druid build that I put out 2 weeks ago at this point, as that deck already felt really strong while I was playing it, and this is just more support for something like that, since a lot of the minions that you run in there actually do have battle cries, so it's a really easy thing to just add something like this. Sure, you're going to lose the consistency on having a bunch of pirates, but honestly, that doesn't really matter too much if you can just buff up your pirates to absurd levels and finish them off with a Mr. Smite having charge. And now time for Shaman, the first one being Clownfish, which is a 3-cost Shaman Murloc with 3 attack, 2 HP. With the battle cry, your next 2 Murlocs cost 2 less. So Shaman currently has a real big issue that most of their Murlocs are actually higher costs, and that's the reason why I've been putting off making a Murloc deck. I was kind of hoping we'd see more support, and between this and one of the other cards revealed today, we actually are seeing a lot of good support for a deck like that. I'm glad I waited a little bit to try to make a deck for Murloc Shaman, as it is one of the classic decks in Hearthstone. It's also cool that we're seeing more mercenary artwork actually make its way into standard, as all of Cookie's Fish also made it into standard with the main set of Sunken City. And overall, I think this is a pretty good card for Murloc Shaman. It does help with a lot of the issues that you had, especially because you do have Firemancer Fergal that you really wanted to have a bunch of cheap Murlocs, and this is an easy way to just do a bunch of AoE damage, and it does solve the issue that a lot of Murloc decks have. It might be a little bit frustrating to play against because it's going to be very similar to the Colossus minion for Mage, except it's going to be a 2-cost minion instead of a 7-cost minion that takes up most of your turn. But overall, I think this is probably a really good card, and I can't see a world where this doesn't see play if Murloc Shaman becomes a relevant deck. The next card revealed is another Murloc, which is Tideloss Bearer, which is a 4-cost Murloc for Shaman with 4 attack, 4 HP, Battlecry, Dredge. If it's a Murloc, summon a 2/2 copy of it. So in combination with Firemancer, this is a really funny card to actually have. However, this does give your opponent some knowledge of what cards that you're going to have in your hand, so it might be a little bit worse. And it is a higher cost Murloc, which if the other card that got printed before, Clownfish, didn't exist, this card probably wouldn't see any play. But I do think this will probably see play because Clownfish is a card and there's easy ways to abuse this and Clownfish in the same deck. And generally speaking, Shaman actually has a good chunk of good Murloc support. It just needed enough support to actually push it into meta relevance, and I'm looking forward to actually trying to make it work. The next card revealed is the final Shaman card, Command of Neptulon, which is a 5-cost Shaman spell that has the nature tag. Summon 2/5/4 elementals with Rush, Overload 1. So this reminds me of the old Faceless Corruptor or something like that, that summoned an additional copy of itself. However, you can't pre-buff this card up, unlike that card. But I do think this will maybe see some play just because it's easy removal for a Control Shaman deck, though it really depends on where this will actually fit. I don't think an Elemental Shaman would want to run a card like this. There's better things to run in such a deck that are higher cost cards, but at the same time, I think it's a decent enough card that it might see some play, and it does support Questline Shaman, which did lose a lot of its support in the new rotation, which is why no one's actually trying to play that deck. Trust me, I've tried to make that deck work. It just doesn't have enough support right now. Hopefully this will move it back into relevance, but you never know, because if it does, this would be 2016 worth of stats for 5 mana, which is actually really insane. But outside of that, I don't know where this would actually see play. The next class that got their cards revealed is Warlock, and the first one being Herald of Shadows, which is a 3-cost Naga minion for Warlock with 4 attack, 2 HP, Battlecry. If you've cast a shadow spell while holding this, steal 2 health from a minion. This is decent. It's basically 4/4 worth of stats. I don't think this will actually see much play just because, sure, this supports Abyss Warlock, but there's just better 3-drops that you actually would want to run, and this would hurt the consistency of actually drawing into your Abyss curse generating Nagas off of the other Naga if you did run it in such a deck. It's really cool artwork, but it is probably one of the worst cards revealed so far, and it is pointing out the fact that Fel Warlock didn't actually get any more support after the initial set, which is a little bit frustrating for me at least, but I guess it made sense with the theme of this set. The next card revealed is Commander Ulthrok, which is a 4-cost Warlock legendary with 7 attack, 7 HP. The Battlecry, your opponent's cards cost health instead of mana next turn. This is basically Millhouse, but 2.0. It has some uses where if you played this in a Abyss Curse deck, you could force your opponent to either take damage from trying to get rid of all the curses in your hand to finish them off. But outside of this, I can't see a world where this sees play. Sure, if you're against an opponent that can't actually heal themselves up and you know they can't actually just kill you in one turn, this card could maybe see some play, but at the same time, it's such a big risk for not that big of a reward. And now for the final Warlock card, Immolate. Immolate is a 4-cost fire spell for Warlock. Light every card in the opponent's hand on fire. In 3 turns, any still in the hand are destroyed. So this is anti-control support, which is a little bit frustrating. It also is anti-combo support, which doesn't really exist in standard right now. This card is basically dead against aggro, but it does show that Blizzard is keep pushing the direction of hand control and deck control for Warlock as a subset of the class. It's an interesting little interaction that Blizzard is trying to support, and I guess it makes most sense for Warlock to actually have this. And most of the cards that actually fall under that category either would be a direct reference to Destruction Warlock, as seen with this card, or Affliction Warlock, which were two things that were actually missing from the Warlock class in Hearthstone. Though it does mean that Demonology, which was the stereotypical Warlock in Hearthstone, has not seen that much support over the last few sets. And I think this is going to be one of those cards that even if it isn't that good, there's going to be people complaining a lot about this card because it will be really annoying in the matchups where it would matter. Honestly speaking, I could only see this card actually be ran in a aggro based deck to try to prevent bad matchups with control decks, as that seems to be where this would be the best use. But then again, it's just going to be a dead draw against any other aggro-based matchups. So I don't know if you'd want to run it. It's a really cool card to actually think about in the long run. But again, it's a really weird card to actually try to see the value in, given how Hearthstone currently is right now. Now for Warrior. Warrior's first card is Clash of the Colossus, which is a 3-cost spell that adds a random colossal minion to both players' hand. Yours costs 2 less. So this means you can get a free colossal minion for 2 turns earlier than you give your opponent. However, if it is a colossal minion like Gigafin or something else that actually will answer a board state, this could backfire really quickly depending on what deck your opponent actually is playing. But it is a really cool card to actually think about because it is big warrior support without actually including big minions within the deck, which is something that a big deck always has struggled with. You always want to have some way to cheat out the big minions, but if they don't print enough cards like this, the decks don't usually function. And this does in theory make Neptulon and Ozmat actually a lot better than they were before, as you could in theory randomly generate them off of this. And now for the next card, Igneous Lava Gorger, which is a 4-cost elemental minion for warrior with 3 attack, 5 HP, with taunt, battle cry, dredge, gain armor equal to its cost. This card, I can't see a world where this doesn't actually see play. I think this is actually a better version of the Onyxia Drake for the long run within a control warrior deck. But at the same time, you could run both of these pretty easily without having to lose too much on consistency, because this will allow you to draw into some of your removals that you might have at the bottom of the deck that you shuffled there with some other cards, or it also helps the from the deck overall, as it is another really good dredge target. And now for the last card revealed, Tidal Revenant, which is a 8-cost elemental for warrior with 5 attack, 8 HP, battlecry, deal 5 damage, gain 8 armor. So this is more big warrior support, and it does look like we're being pushed in that direction. Maybe Vander will actually see some play again because of all these new cards. I actually kind of hope he does, because it's been a while since I've done something with Vander, and this card does seem decent overall, as it serves as a way to do direct damage to your opponent's face if you really like to, while also gaining a bunch of armor, which is actually not bad overall. The only thing I would wish for this to have in addition would maybe be taunt, but at the same time, if you can mana cheat this a little bit, it being 8 cost isn't going to matter too much. And for some weird reason, Warrior has a lot of mana cheat right now, which is not stereotypical of the class. It does open up a lot of possibilities, such as the Quillboard deck that I posted last week, but at the same time, this is an overall just really cool direction to see Warrior being pushed in, as it is something that we haven't actually seen in quite a while. Alright, so those were all the cards revealed today. Let me know down below which ones you're looking most forward to actually using and what you think of each individual card. And while we're at it, let me know which class you are expecting to get the final legendary for this mini set. I'm assuming it's going to be Demon Hunter. I could be completely wrong, but that would be my assumption. Maybe Rogue, who knows. But like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.